Welcome to Stories of a Volunteeraholic. My name is Amy Tiemeyer. I'm the founder and author of the book, Stories of a Volunteeraholic. And as you can see, I don't have a guest today, but I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes with you talking about some of my favorite stories and introduce you to what we think is going to be kind of our new space for local podcasters that are going to be on the show with me. So today I wanted to share maybe two stories that are not in the book. And one of them is I used to coordinate a couple charity golf tournaments when I worked for Fairway Independent Mortgage, and I helped organize their American Warrior initiative, and we got to fund service animals. And so I actually had the ability to gift a service animal to a fellow veteran, a female Marine Corps veteran, and she's a friend of mine, and her animal is her and her animal are doing really well. And I will say that I've had the opportunity to work with service animals and do that. And that has been one of the most rewarding, because that's such a personal piece when you need just a little bit of help on a more consistent daily basis. And one of our fur friends can do that. Service animals to me are animals that are highly trained. If they're barking, then sometimes in my mind, and I know that might be a little judgy, I don't see them as necessarily at the caliber of animals that most of my service animals are. The funding them is huge. If you don't know, service animals cost between $10,000 and $25,000 because of the cost it takes, or the time and energy to train them. Service animals, you can't ask somebody for paperwork on their service animals, but you can ask them what jobs do they do. And it can be from calming down. Service animals can pick kids up or let you know when you're having a seizure. And those who know me know one of my kids has epilepsy. And we used to have a dog that actually jumped up and caught him during a seizure. And if, we could go back in time and I identified that dog as a service animal, and my son is needing that animal would have done very well in a program. Traditionally speaking, there's only a certain amount of dogs that can go through the training successfully. We always want the animal that we want, sort of like the heart wants what the heart wants. But not all animals, or not all dogs, can be service animals. So if you ask me, what does service animals have to do with volunteering? Because service animals are supposed to help the, we say veteran, but person, because not some people who aren't veterans have service animals. It allows them access to a better life. And it's just that simple. So now that my girlfriend has a service animal, and I have a couple girlfriends with service animals, they are more likely to come and join me on a project, enjoy the project. Their stress level is down because their service animal helps them just complete their life in a more positive way. Whether it's identifying when they need to take medication, identifying when they need to create space for them, helping them with balance, any number of things that service animals can do. And so within the volunteer spectrum, if somebody says, oh, I have a service animal, try not to make that as a reason not to invite them or include them. And I know, everybody knows the legalities. Service animals are should be welcome everywhere. So therefore, they will teach you, because it is all about the experience. And think about this. When somebody brings a service animal that is highly trained, they bring just the average level of the event back up. Because everybody loves dogs and different things like that. And understand the rules. Ask if you can pet. When service animals are on, they're doing a job. So they don't need an additional job necessarily. They're doing the job that their owner needs. So not every service animal is going to be pet, different things like that. But oftentimes, the owner, because they know, go meet so-and-so, and so the dog knows it gets to be a dog for the next 5 minutes until they're called back to work. And so it just, like I said, it helps with a really good energy. And people, when you have a dog trained to be there, they act better. They realize if their tone, their body language needs to be understood at a more basic level when an animal is also present. So it can be really great, because I say that sometimes the places that we volunteer at, like food shelters or food banks, shelters, different things like that, those are emotional places. People, when you need basic needs, can have big feelings that they're wearing on the outside. And having somebody there with a service animal can see that and can help regulate it, because it's like, oh, there are good people here. We as humans trust our animals because animals are just more trusting. They're easier to understand. And so they can bring a lot of benefit, or people with service animals can bring a lot of benefit to your volunteer opportunities. And so I definitely encourage that. Another of my favorite stories is working with kids where I was trying to determine test scores. And I had this young man who was, they deemed that his reading was below average or below standard, and so he needed to be in this special program. And he was not an Amy fan, and that is unusual for me. Usually kids, animals, they're all Amy fans. You don't decide you don't like me until you get to adulthood, traditionally speaking. And so this young man, and what was also interesting is I knew his mom and dad. And so his mom and dad were like, no, you have to do this, da, 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 da. And it was hard. Like, he just was tight-lipped. He didn't want to participate, everything. And what changed is on the way to one of our sessions, and I had a group. I had a group of fourth graders, actually. He was my only third grader. And on the way up, I saw him jumping, and he was doing like long jumps. And he was already a really big kid. And so when he came in, I was like, you didn't tell me you had a superpower. And he looked at his mom, and she's like, I don't know. And he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, and I'm like, I watched you jump. I think you are an amazing jumper. And I had all the kids line up, and we did long jumps before we started into our reading and stuff. And he did. He was like, oh, geez, it looked like a foot farther than any other kid. And he participated that day. It was really, really great. And then the next time he also participated. And I realized what he was doing is the girl that was sitting across from him, he was doing her work, which would be upside down to him. So then it made me realize, if you can do this work one grade ahead, upside down, you do not have a reading deficiency. And so I said, this kid needs to be retested. And interestingly enough, like, they were like, no, we don't want to. And I drilled down and I asked some different questions. I'm like, I asked questions that were like, what is the ethnicity of his teacher? And this teacher is the same as he was. But the test taker, they brought in a test taker, was not the same ethnicity. And I drilled down to find out like why he felt the way he did. And in his world, only bad news always was delivered by somebody who looked like me, which is why he didn't want to participate in my class, and why when tests came along, he wasn't participating correctly there. So I asked that his test taker be a teacher or somebody that looked like him. And he ended up scoring like 3 grades higher. And I asked for him to have some additional testing, because I also noticed he didn't like tags on his clothes and just some different sensory things. And his parents actually kind of were like, no, that's not an indicator of something. And I said, just pretend that he was growing up in a different environment. They would use those indicators to show that he was gifted. But because of where we're at right now, they're seen as trouble. They're exhausting. They're this, that, and the other. And so I actually got parents' permission, school's permission to have further testing, and he was gifted, which is why he also was 3 grades higher or able to read upside down, different things like that. I go away, doing my thing, volunteering in the community, 6 years go by, and this ginormous kid comes running towards me. Hey, Miss Amy, do you remember me? And I was like, yes, I do remember you. Barely. I'll be honest, barely. Took me a second. A little bit surprised with the speed in which he was coming towards me. But he is in a gifted program. I think by now he's graduated high school and stuff like that. But he saw me as a pivotal change of even, he said, how he saw himself. And you think, well, why tell me this? This is a volunteering story. And you think of all the people, like the kids that I share things with, and I get them to look and reframe. I have those opportunities because I'm a volunteer. If you're a teacher, you do this work every single day, and my hat is off to you. But I knew I couldn't be a teacher. However, schools need volunteers all the time. And remember, my basis is if you see a need, fill a need. And you can volunteer without a program or a nonprofit or anything. It's all about getting involved. So that is one of my other favorite stories. And my third one, I would say, is actually not something that's happened, but I want to ask a question. Tony Dayton, who was on my podcast a little while ago, a couple weeks ago, he read my book, and he's like, Amy, you haven't done any of the big projects like you used to have done. And I'm like, well, and I feel like I'm in the trenches with the things that I'm doing with my job, which is still tied to volunteering. But I'm like, okay, what should we do? And he's like, I don't know. And so I'm going to ask you guys, what needs do you see we could work together to fill? Where are things that you wish this nonprofit would do, or this school would do, or this senior center would do? It doesn't have to be about kids. It can be, or pets, what in our community do you think we should work together to accomplish? So, like I said, welcome to my home, because if you don't know, this is actually my home. We're going to start having guests here next couple weeks, and I am thrilled to spend this time with you, and I look forward to any feedback that you give, as long as it's helpful feedback. If you go, I didn't like your shirt, great. But if you go, hey, I think this is what you could do better, I would love to hear it. So thank you so much for your time.